Today I want to explain why people sabotage themselves exactly at the moment when they start getting better. And this happens everywhere, in all kind of areas, in business, in fitness, in spiritual work, in psychedelics, and especially in the process of leaving depression, because as you may have seen in my previous videos, leaving depression means changing your life, changing reality. And I will show you today the exact mechanics behind self-sabotage, because once you understand it, everything changes. Let us start with the core truth. You do not sabotage yourself because you are weak. You sabotage yourself because your body wants to protect your old identity. So it's a protective mechanism. Your system is not trying to destroy you, it's trying to keep you safe by keeping you the same. But if you think about it, what it means, then you may think, okay, something stays the same, but something around moves or expands, like the universe. So something is getting diluted. In other words, if you're the same, everything is going downward. So it's a downward spiral. And that's why it's so difficult. That's why we see so many older people with harder challenges in their lives. They think it's normal to get sick over time. It's normal that you lose energy. Everything is getting harder, but this is not a fact. This is something that is the result of the downward spiral. So let's begin with a simple question. Why do people fall back into the collapse phase the moment they make progress? Why do symptoms return? Why do thoughts spiral again? Why does fear show up when things start working? And here's the truth. The body follows the identity it memorized. And this happens until you have reached identity freedom. That's probably something you have never heard. Because usually everybody talks about financial freedom, geographical freedom, time freedom, and those kind of things. But who is talking about identity freedom? But if identity creates your reality, then how can identity freedom not be one of those highest things to achieve? So if your body follows the identity it memorized, then the question is, what was the identity? And if your emotional baseline was pressure, was fear, hopelessness, or collapse, your body learned as it is normal. Like it's normal nowadays to develop diseases, Many of those things that are actually not normal became somehow normal. And normal means it becomes a program, it becomes a prediction, it becomes a survival pattern. And every time you rise above the old identity, the system activates the old baseline to pull you back. And this is why people feel stuck. This is why progress a lot of times feels temporary with those big ups and downs. This is why the collapse phase repeats. And there's also another layer, which is trauma. Trauma is stored energy in the body that was never completed. And when the energy is still inside of you, your system creates the situations in your life that recreate the original emotional state. So you have the chance to feel it again and process it and clear it and get it basically outside of your body. This is what's called reenactment, and this is not something conscious. It's not personal, it has nothing to do with you. It is just the body trying to finish something that was never finished. Or in other words, it's a healing mechanism. This is where the game between destiny and free will actually begins. And if you do not understand these mechanics, the old pattern wins and the same timeline repeats over and over again. The same problems in different areas, with addictions, with weight, with relationships, with finances, with your business. It can happen just in any area of your life. These are not failures. This is an identity loop. An interesting thing may also be the information that disease can also be an identity loop. Now, let me add something important. People often talk about trauma like it is only emotional pain, but trauma is actually belief system work. Because what you believe deep down inside of you becomes the structure of your reality. Your system recreates situations that match the belief because the belief is unresolved truth for your identity. It's the same principle as you see in science. In German, we call it Wissenschaft. Wissenschaft. In English, you would translate it to knowledge creates. You create the knowledge that becomes your reality. It is a creative process and most people do it unconsciously. But this topic deserves a full video on its own because it goes so much deeper into identity, reality creation and timelines. So if you want more of this, subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Now, let me show you the 4 stages of sabotage that every person goes through when changing who they are. Stage 1. resistance. The body rejects upgrade. Thoughts appear like, this is not for me, this is not going to last, or I cannot do this. And I bet you have seen this a lot of times in others, or maybe even in yourself. The system blocks the unknown, because change, no matter how you change, even if it's fitness and you have a plan, you don't know what's after. What is after you lose the weight? What is after you get in shape? What comes after you heal and you are not walking around with certain limitations or diseases? That's the unknown, and that's what the body rejects. Stage 2 is fear. This is the emotional pushback. So symptoms return, old habits return. The system tries to pull you back to familiarity because familiarity feels safe. And if you think about it, then you may have seen that the mind or the ego, your vehicle for experiencing physical reality, has the task to keep you alive. But being alive and living a life in a certain quality are two different things. So the focus is of keeping you alive, but it doesn't care about the quality in which you are alive. That's up to you by overcoming fear. And that is exactly why the system tries to pull you back into familiarity, because familiarity feels safe. And this does not only show up in your thoughts or emotions, it also shows up in your body. Physical sabotage is one of the strongest ways the identity protects itself. Because think about it, who knows you the best? It's your own system, it's your own intelligence. So it will try everything to see if it may work or not, if it can stop you or not. Because if you change, if you are becoming a new person, if you get a new identity, then something old disappears or dies. And it's kind of a survival mechanism for that part. So it tries everything to stop you. And that's why so many people struggle with those ups and downs, because they don't focus on identity change. They're focusing on doing things outside to then get to a certain outcome, and that's pretty difficult. And this physical sabotage then can look like migraine, sickness, fatigue. And I've seen this in so many people. Suddenly they cannot go to the gym because something happened, they have a pain somewhere in their body, some aches, and with it then they are not following their diet anymore because, oh, okay, if I don't go to the gym, then it doesn't make sense to follow a diet, and everything just breaks or falls apart. So your system won. It achieved exactly what it wanted you to achieve, and at one point you will start, okay, when I'm back again, when I feel better, then I will start again and again and again, and the cycles just repeat. And you can actually find like the top and the bottom baseline, and you will know exactly that's where your life is going to be. So basically you can predict the outcomes of your life, which takes out all the magic. So the body uses symptoms to pull you back into the state it understands. And if collapse was your baseline, the body will recreate collapse in physical form. And this is nothing random. It's not bad luck. This is identity protection happening through the nervous system and through the immune system. It brings you back into the old timeline because the old timeline feels familiar and safe. Stage 3 is the collapse. It's the darkest phase. You feel empty, you feel drained, you feel like something is just wrong. You think you're going backwards. But it's important to know that this is not failure. This is your nervous system recalibrating. This is where the old identity breaks apart. This is also why so many people get sick or heavy or exhausted during the collapse phase. The body is not failing, it is recalibrating. It is releasing the old identity chemistry. It is reorganizing the emotional memory. And if you feel the physical symptoms, the fear amplifies them, which makes the system collapse again. This is the physical layer of self-sabotage, and it is completely normal during identity upgrades. This phase only becomes suffering when you misunderstand it, and that's a big problem nowadays in our society, in the Western world. We think that something that is happening for us, a force that is here to work for us and help us, is working against us, so we are fighting the force. And this is kind of how we get stuck and stay limited. Once you understand the mechanics, the collapse phase becomes an inner mentor and a sign that transformation is close. Stage 4 is acceptance. The body stops fighting. The new identity begins to feel normal. Your emotional baseline shifts. Sabotage loses power. You move through life from a completely different state. And these stages show up just everywhere. In the collapse phase, and by the way, mainstream calls what I call collapse phase depression. But I don't use the word because depression nowadays is seen completely wrong. It seems like something hard and difficult, but it's actually not. It's been made difficult because we are seeing it in the way, asking then certain questions that creates a negative downward spiral. That's why I call it here the collapse phase. And this collapse phase, you can see it everywhere in building a business, in fitness, in psychedelic journeys. And literally every upgrade follows the same pattern. And that's also when you come to the understanding that a personal upgrade requires depression. There's no way that you can change yourself without being depressed. Because as long as you are pressed into the identity, how can you choose a different one? Because you don't create identities, you switch through them. This is what depression does, it pulls you out. So that is kind of a collapse. So everything breaks apart from the old because you're switching into the new. Every upgrade follows the same pattern. Now, let me connect this with something I talk about a lot. The universe is unconditionally supportive. Or in other words, it does exactly what you want it to do. This means the universe amplifies whatever identity and emotional belief you currently hold. It does not judge the belief, it just reflects it. This connects directly to what I explained in my last video about the timeline split. I put the link in the description so you can check this out because I think it fits very well. So when the identity changes, the universe changes with it. But here's the part that most people never see. The universe does not process the word not, because that's what many people use. I don't want X, I don't want Y, I don't want to be like this, I don't want to be like that. And by saying those things, it's not that you are not getting the situations that you want, but actually you're getting them. You're getting the situations that you are. If you think, I do not want to fall back, the universe amplifies the emotional state behind the sentence, which is fear of collapse, because this is what you're signaling. You don't want something, so you're resisting something, and you may have heard what you resist persists, and this is why, because you already are the person who does not want something. So this is what you get, exactly the situation in which you can not want something. So if you think, I do not want to lose this good phase now, this new good phase that I have developed, that I got to, the universe will amplify the expectation of losing it. And it's the same example with those positive things. Like people say, I want to be rich. And if you know that the universe always gives you, always listens to you, what you really want, then you just need to think, what is it that I'm saying? What is it that I want? If I say I want to be rich, does it really mean I want to be rich? Is this what I really want? Or do I want to be in a situation in which I want to be rich? Which means I'm going to stay poor. That's the deeper communication behind I want to be rich. And if you then have people, for example, and you talk about wealth and how to build it, how to build a business, you teach them things and they don't make it, then they blame it on you. But behind the scenes, they don't want it. And if you tell them, you know, you have everything, but you're still not getting it because you don't want it. Because what you want, obviously, is to be rich. You get it? And that's interesting. That's like a fight, because some people think, yeah, but I want it so much, I will do everything for it. But that's not what you're doing. You show something completely different. It's like you're saying A, but are like showing B. And showing is the one that is important here, your inner state, not what you're just saying, what you think you want. It's the belief system under it. So if you believe that you want to be rich, you will get the situation in which you always want to be rich and you never actually become it. Or in other words, it reflects the emotional charge, not the words. And this is why so many people leave depression for a few days or weeks and then just fall back into the collapse phase. Because they are getting out and they don't want the other, they resist it so much, they're afraid of it, and that's what they tell the universe to give them. And then we get to the point surrender. Surrender means removing resistance. Surrender means allowing the experience without fear. Surrender means no internal contradiction. And as soon as you stop fearing the collapse phase loses its power and the identity shift stabilizes. So basically it's about making friends with what you fear, not resisting it and not fighting it and not wanting it anymore. So let's talk about how to break the cycle. There are 4 steps. Step 1, expect sabotage. When you expect it, you stop taking it personally. You stop interpreting it as failure. You understand that this is part of the upgrade, and that's very, very important. Step 2, remove resistance. Do not fight the fear. Do not fight the symptoms. Do not judge them. Observe them. Let them move through your system. The moment you stop resisting, the nervous system stops escalating, which leads to step 3. Train the new identity, which means daily consistency, using tools, using the breath, using meditation, using visualization, feeling the future, showing the body a new baseline, making experiences deep down before you make them based on your environment outside, because you can make experiences without needing the environment for you to give you something to make the experience emotionally. And then step 4, stabilize through repetition. Identity becomes stable through repetition and emotion. This is how you anchor a new timeline. And this is how you break the old survival algorithm that you are in at the moment. So let me end with this. You are not broken. Your old identity is strong. Your trauma patterns are strong. Your collapse phase is not a mistake. Nothing is wrong with you. And you are in a cycle that can be changed. When you understand the stages, you stop being afraid of the process. You stop sabotaging the rise out of depression. You stop sabotaging your business growth. You stop sabotaging your fitness journey. You stop sabotaging relationships. You stop sabotaging the new version of you. And finally, you gain access to free will again.